qué más, Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Visual. Thank you for your presentation. I entirely appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Yes, today we're going to review the central operations and specifically how to make payments, how to receive payments from customers. It's going to be an interesting webinar today. It's going to take over more or less 1 hour, at most 1 hour and a half. You're free to make any question whenever you want. And I'm just going to start with the webinar today. So the idea is that the payments that we are going to review in Business Central, we have a lot of functionality since we are in the cloud. But for those of you who work on premises or who still work with NAB, we are going to just use the same functionality. And through the process, I'm going to be teaching you. The idea is that you know the features, the main features, not yet to review a Windows, to review only just the operation and view some figures, but the idea is that you take the idea of the technology. So let's just begin that. Today, the specific idea for us, what we're going to be learning. So basically, we're going to be focusing on some manual process to create payments in Business Central. So this is what we're going to be reviewing, some exercises. So we will focus on how to enter payments manually in a cash receipt journal. It's a journal that we just open and still need to enter some lines. But for those of you who want, we also have some other features to be able to import payments from vendors, from websites, from banks, and to reconcile automatically. Plus, we have connections to credit debit cards with online services, so you can have a different approach now, and so on. So, but how does everything begin? All right, let's go. And before flying, we need to start walking. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to process a customer payment manually, enter a line in the payment journal, review how it is done, apply a payment to the customer and vendor ledger entries, process a partial payment and apply entries, and process payment differences automatically. The idea is that we have some invoices already. Remember that our operations are either for wholesaling, retailing, or other different sectors are currently making some operations. So what do we do with our customers and our suppliers? Well, it depends on the industry, but in this case, what we are also going to be talking about is more or less when we have already an invoice or when we have a credit memo, we have some documents upon we are going to be working our payments just to start the lesson. So what do we do then? In first place, we need to know how to enter payments. We need to see the interface in Business Central. Remembering for those of you who work in NAB, well, that is going to be more or less the same idea, the same concepts, but with this new version. So it's anyway interesting for any of you who want to start working now. So let's just begin now. What do we do? Well, this is a Business Central. This is just an interface with my KPIs. I'm an accountant today, and I have some overdue purchase invoices. Look at my KPI that is in red, overdue sales invoices amount as well, sales this month, and so on. So just KPIs for my role. You already know that in Microsoft and Dynamics products, you can select your windows, your KPIs, and whatever you need, and we put it in your screen. So payments that are received from customers recorded in the cash receipt journal, which we're going to be looking at now. We're going to be checking and we're going to be posting them. Bank, customer, vendor, and fixed asset accounts can be involved, of course. You can apply the payment to one or more debit entries. So when you post a payment, you can apply them to one specific, you can apply the payments or do it all the way around. So we're going to check that. What do we do? Do we have already invoices that were posted? Do we pay later? Or do we receive the money from our customers, or we pay to vendors and we then apply it? How do we do those processes, right? That's why we need, before going to automated processes, we need to learn the basics. So In order to start, I'm gonna begin with the cash receipt journal. That's the first part that we're gonna be checking. So we will just receive money from the customers, all right? Any type of operation applies to this specific journal to begin and learn what do we do in first place. So we have one journal specifically that we just use to receive money, let's put it that way. So of course, well, we could receive also money from a POS, or we have some other activities, credit debit cards. But in first place, what we do is just check. We just use one journal that we have created. We have two here, one for checking account, one for general activities. One is using banks already set up. We can predefine for you. For instance, when I receive money, I always use this bank as an example, right? So we can just predefine that for you. We are receiving a payment, in this case from a customer, and we just select the specific information. You need to select the document type payment. That's very important for our operation. And that way we are defining the type, the transaction type we are doing, and then the customer 20,000 trade research was selected in this line specifically. And after we are just checking this part, while we are just receiving money manually, the idea is that we can generate more lines here, and we could then, after this, input an amount, or we just could select more documents. But now, okay, I'm going to receive money, but I have one field that is called applies to document number. What does this stand for? The idea behind all these windows, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, is I just want to know the documents from this customer that I have, the sales operations. So I can select any of the sales, so I can receive a payment. This is what I'm doing right now from that window. And I'm just including that document. So I'm receiving the specified amount in this example. So with this, what I'm saying is that I'm just receiving the money. I will be then just working with this, and I just can post this document. So in this first line, the idea is that I'm manually working with the cash receipt journal on the specific date. Remember that part. So that's one way. I'm just receiving money, and I'm just specifically selecting one single document that in this line. This is not the only way of doing this type of operations. I'm going to show you more later. This is just the basics to start learning what we are doing. So I'm inputting another line with the customer 3,000. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I usually don't receive money to only one document. So I need to open this function that is called apply customer entries. So the only variation here is that I can just select with this function more than one document to be paid. So in this case, I'm just selecting more than one document. In red, I can see, by the way, the overdue invoices from the customer. So while I'm just applying this payment to all these manually selected invoices, then I'm just trying to summarize. In this case, I'm paying, if you can see the balance below is 23,000, all right? So that way you can see how much money you're receiving. You can see all your calculations and immediately understand that we are just applying money, but also getting the information from the original documents. Of course, there might be other situations. These are the first two. In the first line, we just apply one single payment to one document, and in the second, multiple documents. So in the following video, what we're going to be showing, like I said, is about learning the functionality, right? And the features specifically. Once we are just learning, and we are learning, I have in every implementation, in store, in warehouses, everywhere you receive payments, I always have this request. I don't want to use that previous journal. Maybe the accountant use it, but for an operational person who is actually receiving the payments, they work on a very, very fast pace. What do we do then in that example? Then we are going to review how to make a registration. We have one function that helps me to prioritize them in one single window, just preparation for payments, but without a specific journal, credit, debit, in which bank I'm going to be receiving. We can predefine many features, but for the person who will be receiving the money, he can be then just focusing his activities on the task of applying payments to invoices. So let's review it then. Let's watch the following video, a demonstration of the function that I'm talking about. So this is just another faster way to process a customer payments, let's say. So I have the list of customers here, right? This is the Adatum Corporation School of Trade Research, School of Fine Art. Just select the customer and look for the process function. And this function is register customer payments workday. For us, the main feature is that we can see all the documents that we have for these customers, so all those invoices. We just need, for those of you who are learning, we just need to make one single setup, since we are actually preparing all this payment form in advance for the user to forget about any other setup in the line. So we are saying all these documents that I will be paying, I'm going to be using one template, one journal, one bank. So you can predefine some features, and specifically the offset account, which is very important in this case. So in which bank you are going to be placing the money in this case, right? So but you have to do this only one time. Now, the idea here, nevertheless, is just to review the operation for the function, for me to learn, for me to check that. This idea is that I'm going to be having all the documents open for one customer, and then I just can go and just click on these check boxes. So immediately I just can do a payment. No, I don't require anything else. I have just immediately done a payment with just one check, review the amount, review the invoice number, maybe the date or some other currencies, maybe the description. But in this case, what I'm doing, just selecting the documents that I know that I have this, that I have the money. Maybe somebody made a transfer to my bank account and sent me a document to prove that, right? So the idea is that I'm just opening this window for those persons who oh, look, I'm paying at this point 2 just payments at once. You can do also that. You can do partial payments. You can do in this specific window. That is the best part of this functions, because I can just immediately, just by clicking on the checkbox, I can still change the amount. I can change the currencies. If sometimes I'm receiving payments in other currencies. Well, for me, the idea is that I can just have a function to just automate in a single window as well, just manually, just trying to make all the payments faster. In this case, I'm opening another registered customer payment, but I have all the different customers here. Yes, you can do so. Maybe you are in the warehouse, you are in the store, where you are working directly in NAB, but the customers are visiting you in the front desk. So let's have the window open. And whenever they come and give you money, just come, look at the specific, in this case, the invoices to be paid. And in this case, just select them. The amount received immediately is being suggested. You can still edit everything, right? The idea for me is that to show that in one single window, the person can just come and start make the payments as more convenient it is for him. You can still filter by date, by invoice number, and do everything, right? So the same functionality from all the windows that we have. So we are just, once again, selecting one single document and posting it, right? So the only difference is that I have just all the vendors and all the customers in one single window, right? So you have these 3 functions. You can ask later for further functionality. If you want this video, if you want this material, you can just request it, all right? Don't forget it. Now, the following, after understanding the basic processes, let's understand, because this is not the only way I will be actually processing information, all right? The first, this has been just the best explanation of how to do it manually, how easy it is, and for you to have the features of the functionality, right? Now, so that's one way of doing this payment information, but you still can work with sales credit memo documents to balance some invoices whenever they apply to deduct balances without having to input any other payment. And remember, invoices and credit memos will be balanced in order to get the final figure to be paid to either customer or vendors, right? So from customer and vendor ledger entries after sales documents are posted but not applied. All right, so the general way of making payments is that, like in these brief examples, you already should have your invoices, all right, there. But that's not the only way to do so. Since you can just have other type of applications. Let's talk about it. Ways that you can apply customer and vendor ledger entries include applying a payment to a single customer or vendor ledger entry, applying the payment to multiple customers or customer or vendor ledger entries, applying posted document or vendor ledger entries. I'm going to show you in a moment how exactly, what I mean exactly with this, and correcting an application of customer or vendor entries. The idea is, let me explain you in other words. You have invoices, you receive money, apply the money to the specific documents. In other type of operation, well, you just receive the money, but you still don't have clarification of to which invoices you should apply a payment. So you can anyway just register the payment and later come and make the application whenever you know or you are sure about the information, all right? So just saying that you can use credit debit memos, you can apply them later and so on. So for you to do not focus, first just the basic exercises, then some clarifications of the actual possibilities or while making payments, and then we just come and let's do another exercise. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna register a payment and then apply it to the open documents that we have. So we are gonna be doing it all the way around, okay, so to see how is that possible then. It's very easy actually. I have just once again, the cash receipt journal open. By the way, you can use your features. You can navigate to Business Central. So we have some other webinars where you are actually going to be learning just basics about navigation, customizing your windows and so on. Now, I have this payment again. You can see the customer 3000 school fine art in this first line. And I'm just have prepared one single a payment, but I haven't done anything else, all right? I have just registered a payment. That's the whole idea in first place. So for me, for me that I'm preparing the exercise now, I know that I have money from this customer, School Fine Art. I'm opening the customer card then to see. I know that I have money. You can see the payment that is in the top of the list, right? So it's there, but I can see that the amounts that is in the remaining amount column, I'm gonna need to learn about AR functions, but this means that I still haven't applied this payment to any document yet. So basically, I can see the dates, the documents, the remaining amounts, the due dates for specifically for the invoices. So you can come and let's now apply my payment to the open documents that I have, specifically invoices. You can actually also balance by credit memo. But here the function apply entries is the one that is going to be helping me to actually select the documents that I will be then using to apply my to pay. So I have just entered one single payment with this function, and looking at the information available in this window, I can understand, okay, look at the header. I'm making a payment. I have a payment already, right? But the remaining amount of the payment haven't been applied. So you can select, by the way, currencies, don't forget it. It's always, when we talk about payments, important. The dates are always important. And then I'm just selecting the function set applies to ID. In this case, in this window, applies to ID is because this means that I'm just selecting this document. So one in the applies to ID column, you can see that. And what I'm going to be doing is post an application. With this, I'm saying the money that I'm receiving is being applied to this specific invoice, and that's it. So what I'm saying is that in first place, I have received some money, but the customer will be telling me later about that, and look at the remaining amount is zero, meaning that it's closed. The payment is just closed and won't be considered anymore to be then applied to any more invoices because we don't have any other money to apply. So that is then the lesson. You can then do all the registration all the way around that in the traditional way where you receive money, apply directly. But if you can, if you want to do it then later, yes, it's possible. So what happened then, it's very common that sometimes we just make mistakes. And in the beginning of what I'm learning and when I'm seeing this in the cloud interface, let's remember, just to mention, not to forget that the same functions apply to NAB. And the only difference is that I will be then checking for another webinar is how to then work and pay in the cloud. That's very good. How to work and import from maybe websites, or since we have in Business Central in the cloud, very important for you to learn and to take this information. We work with what we call extensions. In this new technology era, we work with applications like with Android or with iOS. So now we want to take advantage of applications that we know that are available, so we can connect them now to Business Central, like PayPal as an example. So just to mention that, right? But that's for more advanced features in another webinar. Now, we were just talking about with the manual processes, applying payments, before, then later applying a register, and then apply the payment in a second step. What happens when I just have errors? When you correct an application, correcting entries, we need to, let's say, create identical to the original entries, but with an opposite sign, so we can correct a payment, all right? We cannot do partial corrections. That's an accounting principle most of the time, all right? So most of all, I mean, including all general ledger entries that we need to correct whenever we do, we have an error, maybe we selected the incorrect currency even or something, those type of operational mistakes. So, but well, I don't know, payment discounts or gains or losses, right? The entries were just closed by the application and we need to reopen. So that's the idea of the following. We need to do what we call the onApply entries function. And this is how we just do so. All right, I'm just going to then, once again, open my journals. But I need to review now one customer entry. And in order to do the entries that I have just posted already, I need to open directly the customer card, directly NAB and Business Central on-premises and in the cloud. When we open them, of course, they have all the history registered, all the transactions, and look at the balance here is for this customer of total sales. And what I want to actually review is the ledger entries. In other words, the history registered in the accounting books coming from the operations. All right, the ledger entries is the sub-ledger for the customer where I have all the history of the documents from this customer. Now, I have a payment, debit, credits, invoices, and so on. The description, the document type is there in red. I have overdue documents, even though now this is history. All right, so we still have some information. Now, what is important here, I have just selected one payment entry, and this is the detailed information. I have the initial entry was a payment and the application that was related to an invoice in the document number column. The entry type is initial entry and application. And guess what? You just need to onApply. With that single function, what we're going to be doing is showing to the user, okay, this is what we are going to be onApplying in a new window, so the user can be super sure about what he's going to be doing. And this on a application is going to, well, actually we are going, the reverse function is going to use the following application in order to balance to zero or to create, is actually creating new entries while I'm just clicking on apply. So these are new entries. We are not deleting. In accounting principle, we just never delete. What we are just doing is posting the entries that are identical to the original, but with an opposite sign. And yes, that's all that we are going to be doing. And you need to go to the specific either customer or vendor ledger entries, like in this example. Get to the specific transaction you have posted and use the onApply function. All right, so after I have just talked about that, I have one single issue all the time. I have currency differences. I have sometimes differences with a payment, also invoices, and then I receive a credit memo that I might have, and the customer wants to return something maybe, but the customer gave us a document with an error, decimals, rounding, I don't know. Payment tolerances. Sometimes a customer can underpay or overpay an invoice amount. When this situation occurs, the following two options are available. First of all, pause the payments with the remaining amount. With this option, you must close the remaining amount by using other methods, such as posting an adjustment or by contacting a customer for additional payment. So you are being strict, which is not that it's not the best practice, but it's still, of course, it's your decision, it's your policies. It depends on the type of product even and the amount, of course, because 1% of tolerance is not the same for an amount for retail services that for a wholesaling operation, of course. Now, the second way, set up payment tolerances to close entries where there is a difference between the amount owed and the amount paid. With this option, parameters of acceptable difference are used to post the amounts to GL accounts, okay? So what I'm just saying with this, I can accept tolerances, yes. There will be differences, yes. We can set them up, yes. Payment discounts, tolerance, with this type, take a payment discount even if the payment discount date has passed. What I'm saying, what this means is that whenever you have differences, you can set up and tell to Business Central or NAB, I want this to be taken as a discount, simple as. And a second setup is the payment tolerance. If you don't want to take it as a discount, this type accepts, with the payment tolerance setup, this type accepts a slightly larger or smaller amount as full settlement of an outstanding invoice. So anyway, what in the payment tolerance setup, we are just saying, I want a difference is acceptable for me, cents possible, yes. Percentages of an amount, yes, it's not a problem. Let's see just how we just do so. So we are going to be then working with one. This is just don't bar your key user, financial controller, or accounts receivable or payment, so they can have a brief discussion. But for you to know, the payment tolerance function or lesson is now for you to take a consideration of the function. So we are just going to open the general ledger setup where we actually just set up the financial main information. Okay, for the financial module, we just set up here many features. Okay, the general ledger setup is most of the time just open for controllers. Then we have one application tab in this window. Look at the payment tolerance function. Here, you can specify if you want a warning when you see differences when you create a payment. I'm just going to enable this function. So this is it. You are telling Business Central, if you see differences when I'm applying a payment to an invoice, tell me. And the payment tolerance posting, you need to specify a method when you see a payment with tolerance, right? And with this, what I'm saying is that you can set it up as a tolerance when you're going to need an account or as a discount. You define that, okay? After that, it's just all about a percentage and or an amount. So what will be the threshold for you? Basically, it's just that. But remember, it's not only about the tolerance that you can accept or decline. It's just, this is not, by the way, restricted. This is just a suggestion, right? But the warning I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to show you an exercise in a moment, but first the setups for you to know. And this is as well for NAB very important, because now you can set this for all your currencies, right? In this case, I have 3 currencies here: Canadian euro, a Canadian dollar, euro, and Mexican peso. You can define one tolerance by specific currency because you have different exchange rates, and they are not, and they won't act the same. You need to verify that per currency if you have more than one. So you can specify payment tolerances. In this case, percentages by, I don't know, 1% at most, 1.5. You decide that, but in my experience, is very under a 0.2. Is not more than 2%, except maybe for those of you who work with wholesaling, that would be the standard. In retail, you might have some other type of tolerances, but the idea here is more or less working with the entire ERP in Business Central. So this is the setup that is going to allow you to post the payments done here. All right, that's very important to define. So when I just select my currency, this is going to ask me, is this going to be for all your entries? And I'm just selecting yes. All right. With this, I have just made the setup required for Business Central. So once again, you have a percentage, you have an amount that you can define, and you use the function change payment tolerance. All right. And with that, you can define that for all your currencies or just for one or two. It depends. So you need to be very careful on the currency when you treat them. So you can understand that, yes, sometimes a Business Central is going to show you with this function a warning when you set it up, and it's going to tell you, hey, I have an issue here. What do we do? And you need to understand in advance before setting this up. All right. Anyway, it's so easy that it's just about differences. All right. So set up accounts for payment tolerances. We might need some accounts as usual. Yes. You know that we have on the, if you have not defined this, okay, every process related in the to Business Central has an account, an automated account that we define in advance. So if you want to work with this, think about a payment tolerance debit account and a credit account. All right. If you define that as a discount, well, you need to define a discount account. Where do we do that? And this is in the customer posting group window. You can define here the customer posting group. In this case, I'm just showing you a simple example for domestic customers. I have all these accounts for invoice rounding, debit currencies applied, credit currencies applied. At the end of this line, you can see that we have set up a payment tolerance debit and credit account. And every time you use a function like this, you need to define that. We have predefined for the implementations, the AR, discounts, and so on. Now, let's just take a look at the actual exercise. What happened when I just process a payment with differences? In this case, I'm just going to open a transaction. Excuse me. I'm just going to open a transaction where I'm going to be working with the setups. I'm gonna just verify that with my general ledger setup, everything is just defined. Okay, so I can just work with it normally. And in this case, let's take a look. I have defined a payment tolerance as 1% for this local currency. So I expect that for any amount, no more than 1% is available to be admitted. And I'm just checking the payment tolerance is working. The payment tolerance function is now set up. So what I'm going to be doing is after this, let's see how the actual function works. So once it is done, remember that this works with some currencies only. Whenever you set them up, or if you want for all of them at the same time, it's just okay. So it's just internal policies that you need to define. So I have a currency, I have a cash receipt journal where I will be just inserting one of any transaction, any payments. And in this case, I will be just working with I have different type of transactions, but the idea is that I will be just working with my differences.
and the document number, and you select a customer or vendor in this example. And here I have my, my customer, trade research, all right? The trade research, then for me here in this example is just all about the insertion of the information. But here it's important to define then, okay, if you remember the functions, you can select one document from the applied entries. You can select any invoice that is still open, look at the applies to document invoice, look at the amount, and the amount to be paid, all right? So the whole idea is that, okay, I know I might see an issue with cents or something, I'm just changing on purpose my amount to be received, and here just a message is being applied. An action is requested regarding the payment tolerance warning. Post the balance as payment tolerance and leave our remaining amount. Let's look at the details. So you can see the information that will be posted to one specific document, the difference and the balance. In this case, only for the difference will be 0.4 cents in this case, all right? So you can leave a remaining amount or post the balance as payment tolerance. What do you want to do in this case? So you need to define that, all right? For every transaction. So regarding the payment tolerance warning, this is it. This is not restrictive. This is going to allow us to work. But we can see, and we are going to be able to see the differences, all right? So I'm just posting the journal. We know that we have an issue here. Well, not an issue, we just have a difference. And in this example, we need to check at the GL register entries. We have the history of all the transactions in the system in the GL registers, by the way. And here we are just can see all the transactions that we have just posted, and we are just seeing the last one, and look at the customer ledger entries. So I have the following GL registrations in the general entries. I'm just expanding now my window with some fields. And here I have the amount that will be posted by GL account. I have predefined my GL accounts. For the trade search, I have 3 transactions. So I have 3 because even though I have just a payment, I'm just posting one line for my differences for 0.4 cents and related to the account that was defined previously. All right, so this is it for the main setups in the basic process, manual process. And now what we're going to be reviewing is the other side, okay, AP. I'm not going, it's more or less the same, it's just the same journal, same functionality, but I'm just, for AP, I'm just going to use some other automated features that we have. We're going to use we're going to just use the suggest vendor payment functions in the central, create payment suggestions. What's very important in Business Central is that here we are going to be using functionality that is going to be helping us to automate my process. Most of the time, I can just be sure that the information is fine. I will be checking in Excel. I'm going to be checking my available amount that I can use to pay, or my budgets whenever they apply, if you have them, or if you have constrictions with money. What happens when you have more important vendors? Priority. What happened when you need to review and I need to pay only the overdue amounts? Most of the time you just work in Excel. Here in Business Central, we have those functions to automate the process. So we have some functions to suggest the vendor payments fields. Okay, we're going to open now in one single window. We can see all of this, by the way. So I don't want to take much of your time and just want to show you the function. But what we're going to be doing now is just showing you a function that selects the help us to select the specific invoices to pay, which some criteria. In the first place, the last payment day we need, because we need to tell the function or this tool, hey, look until the following month or 2 months or 3 months in the future. Just select the last payment day, which is a window, in this case, for us to see a horizon for the entries that were posted in, so we can select invoices to be paid. Okay, check other journal batches, specifies whether to exclude payments that are already included in another journal batches. All right, so You might have included them in some other place, but you then suddenly come up with another idea with some priorities, a balance, money constraints, and so on. You can't just do so. Summarize per vendor, just if this field is selected, the batch job suggests one line per each vendor. So when this is important, well, sometimes you might be preparing a check, for instance. So you just have received one single check from one vendor that is going to be paying you a lot of documents. So summarize per vendor is going to be helpful in that way. Posting date, well, is when you're going to be registered your transactions in your books, and starting document number is the number of the document for the payment that you want to assign. It also could be an automated number, of course, from the series that you set up in NAV. So these are just the basics. Let's see how to work. Okay, so once again, what are we doing now? With this function, we are going to be preparing a payment as well, more or less what we have just reviewed with the customers, now with the vendors, but using the help of the suggestion done by Business Central. So let's see how the function works, all right? So I need to set up one thing first before going to the function, and is that a priority for your vendors. What you're seeing is a vendor card for the 10,000 vendor, which is Fabricam Inc. All right, I can see just this beautiful picture of the lady and some setups that this vendor has. In the payment section, as you can see here, I have one single field that is important for this function, which is a priority. I'm saying that this vendor or any other one, you can set the priority by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just a numerical value that you select. And what's the idea behind all of this? Well, this vendor is more important for me, all right? And then how the function is related to the priority. Once you can define that, those important, at least define priority 1 or 2, that I would say as an example in your current systems, and within NAV or Business Central, I mean. And let's see how do we use this, all right? First of all, Business Central consider the lowest number except 0, of course, the highest priority. For example, if you use numbers 1, 2, 3, then 1 will have the highest priority, all right? That's as simple as. Now, if you don't want to prioritize vendor, leave the priority field blank. Then if you use the payment suggestion filter, the vendor will be listed after all the vendors that have priority number. You can enter as many priority levels as necessary. Simple. Very simple, all right? Select the priority for your most important vendors. What is going to happen with this function? Okay, Business Central, help me now. I only have some constraints with the money. I have only certain amount of money to pay. Suggest me some documents. And here, you need to learn some policies first. With the function, only vendor entries that can be fully paid are suggested, not partial payments with that, right? For partial payments, you will define them. For documents to pay with money constraints, only if they are fully paid, and only for most important vendors. That's why is this policy set up, all right? And needs to be understood that way. All priority 1 vendor entries that can be fully paid within an available amount are suggested first, okay? We're gonna see that in an exercise. Any vendor entries for lesser priority vendors that can be fully paid within the remaining amount are then suggested as well. So we start from 1, and then we just continue with the others, all right? Then for each vendor, the batch job suggest amounts that are based on the due date, very important, of the vendor. First, review the priority, then review the amount, and of course, don't forget about the due date, okay? Last, when you are specifying an available amount in the suggest vendor payment batch job, the program does not automatically calculate the payment tolerance and the payment discounts tolerance when suggesting the amounts to pay. Right? This needs to be what we are going to be doing is that Business Central is just going to see those documents behind with the due date, with the priority, and it's just going to use the identical figures to be paid. So if one invoice is for $1, $1 is suggested to be paid. Let's see an exercise just to use the vendor priority available amount. We are almost finished. So I just want to use this function. For me, in the AP side, what I want to show is that whenever we have an exercise like this, we have also these variables, all these variables, but I want just to take the opportunity to learn, to have first ideas, and then come up, ask us the video, and you can then later learn, because we have a lot of details, of course. The function now suggest vendor payments is here. I have just opened a payment journal. I have opened the suggest vendor payments function. And here, the idea is that I will be just using this function in order, look at this, I have find the payments, check other journal balances, posting date, starting document number, and so on. So within this function, in this window, we are going to set up all the information, right? So, well, this is just an error message, but it's just a warning, actually. I've just selected the function and boom, it just gave me all the payments for the company for that specific date, all right, that I will be just paying. This is just a universe of vendor payment side. I have all the vendors in account number. You can see that column. I have different account vendor numbers, all right? So this function in the first exercise is just giving me all the list of the different vendors. I have not set up any filter. I have not done anything. So you can see, okay, what is the idea of this first exercise? Okay, let's go to actions. I'm going to just review the test report for the first time for the entire company in this demo. I mean, I'm just showing the invoices that needs to be paid. The total amount for the invoices is $42,000. We know that most of the time we aren't going to be paying the total amount for my AP process, right? So all the documents, all the invoices. So this is just an example what that this function is giving me. First of all, it's suggesting me payments to do, okay? So in this case, it's just, since I have not filtered anything, I have not done anything yet, it's just telling me you need to pay all of it, all right? Now, let's do the following. But the exercise anyway, I have one question here, is about the function to be defined. Yes, it could be a checkbook. I have a question here. Yes, you can select a check. It's not a problem. A bank. In this case, we would need to show an exercise for a check. It's not a problem. This is for Hector. That's another type of exercise that we can just do it with the same window, and we just would need to select, oh, but this is a check, and that's all. And you can define the bank account. Let me show you in a moment how this is done. But yes, the answer is you can do this for checks. You can select a checkbook or a bank account whenever you want. It's not a problem. Now, let me just delete all of this. Okay, let's use the function to use the priority. And let's see, first of all, I have all these vendors that currently have, once again, I was showing the priority. In this case, well, Fabricam has priority number 2. Very well. I have First Stop Consultants, the priority number 1, and so on. So the whole idea is that you have a lot of vendors. I'm just showing now that I have prioritized my vendors in this first preparation. And once again, suggest vendor payments function. And I'm gonna click on show more on this window for you to know, okay, in this, I have a constraint. I don't have the $40,000 now. I only have 25,000. That's what is going to be occurring most of the time. Okay, with that, I'm just saying, use the vendor priority function. And here, the whole idea is that you will need to start selecting that. And to answer the question here, the balance account type is a GL account. Just as an example, it could be a checkbook. It could be without problems to help us to print our checks whenever you need them. So it's not a problem. Now, just to show the function with the priorities and the balances and so on, this is just a very function to use. and the account numbers that were suggested, the vendors that were suggested here in the account number column. And I have all the specific documents. And once again, just let's take a look at the report. And here what I want to just show is what NAB has suggested with all these constraints. Now the total to be paid is 13,000 instead of the 25 that I have more money to pay, but in this case, I'm just using the same policies that I mentioned before, that only documents that that will be fully paid will be considered, all right? Then, at last but not least, just to finish this webinar, at least this first part of the document process and payment process, you can use this following function. Just use the same suggest vendor payments functions that we have seen in these exercises. But sometimes the priority is not only the amount, but also the due date is super important. Due fees, constraints, it depends on the type of policies you work with in AP in your region. But if that's super important, just select the function, calculate posting date. Suggest vendor payments, a function has this calculate posting date from applies to the document number. So with this, we are saying, Business Central, go and review the overdue date that you might have, that you have in all the documents, excuse me, review that, give me those documents by the oldest one. Let's review the aging as an example before closing books at the end of the month. So let's do these last exercises and let's just pay at least the aging, according to our aging policies, all these documents, okay? So you also can define a current week minus 2 days as an example. You can tell us also, consultant, how you actually work with this type of policy, so we can define and help you define your overdue policies, your aging policies, 0, 30, 60, 90 days, for you to not only have a specific report that is going to show you the information, but since you know that you have automation, you might also want to make Business Central or NAV understand how you work, so it can be then more helpful for you. So this is it. In this example, at this moment, I'm finishing the webinar. I don't know if you have further questions. I will be creating another webinar where we're more advanced features. Check printing, I would like to see that, because I know some of you might be printing with logos. Sometimes we would need to customize that. It was a good question. Also, another question I'm receiving here is for EFT for electronic for transfers. It can be connected. We can connect other extensions with credit debit cards, but this is Business Central in the cloud. We will need to review also this part, how you want to pay. Yes, you can receive files if you want to import them from a vendor. You can ask them, and we can just import the documents into the journal if they just have the actual current layout that we work with in Business Central. And yes, you just can import and start working with that type of transactions, okay, and operations. Features, I would say. So, but those are more advanced. We will need to start from the beginning. This is the first lesson that I have to making payments. I should have called it manual payments, basically. So anyway, we're gonna be making more webinars on a weekly basis. We have webinars like this. So whenever you want to see something, one special topic, please let me know so I can prepare the exercise for you, either in Business Central, in the cloud, on premises, even with, if you want to have some trainings. So let me know, let me have contact with you guys. And here's my email for you, for those of you who currently don't have my email, is here, noe.wellman@optimus.com.